本当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。What's good, Internet? It's Friday, March 13th. Wait a second. It's Friday the 13th?
Oh, shit.
Why didn't anyone tell me?
I don't like that.
I don't like that this week. It's not. Okay.
I have not seen a single tweet about that. How is that possible? Everyone is at home
That's
tweeting.
how fucking bad it is,
That's
dude.
how bad this fucking week is. Wait, but it's Thursday now. We don't know what's coming tomorrow. Tomorrow is Friday. I don't like this.
No,
this is a bad discovery to make live. I'm Austin Walker. You can hear the voices of Cado, Rob, and Patrick as we record our first, not ever, but our first in a long, our first and last, Jesus Christ, podcast. We're back at the home. We're back at home bases. I mean, I guess, Rob and Patrick, this is just your everyday.
Yeah, welcome. The water is warm. Please come in.
Welcome to work from home. But Cado and I are not in the booth. We're not in the studio. The irony, we're just going to have a lot of horn noises going forward. It's good. It's good. Cado is coughing, which makes me nervous.
What? It's a good thing we're
on the
not
other end of the
realized-
microphone.
I realized just now that I left the window open.
That was you.
And that sound you hear was the presumably rage-fueled school bus driver that shows up at midday to rotate the kindergarten classes. And every day, and I mean literally every day, they park below my building
Good.
and just go apeshit on that horn.
Yep, I hear it.
Yeah, this is a chill day. There are days where basically it sounds like if it wasn't children, the driver would be out of their car and like pulling a tire iron from the tool rack.
I had last night during the amazing moments of Sarah Palin singing on The Masked Singer going into a Donald Trump address filled with mistakes. Someone outside's car alarm went off like 5 times consecutively. So it was just like the most 28 days later bullshit. I'm just like, well, here we are. All right, let's go. Nightmare future. I guess we should say straight up, I guess, Cado, you put something in the feed.
Yeah.
But we missed the Monday podcast because of COVID-19, the novel coronavirus, and Vice shutting down the offices. An email that went out at like 10:10 a.m. I think that email should have gone out earlier, maybe before I was almost at the office. But we're back, and we're going to be recording from home for the foreseeable future. Everyone here is okay, just so y'all know. I'm very grateful that I have a job that I can do from the desk in my bedroom. Again, Patrick and Rob, y'all been doing this work from home shit for a minute. Do you have any tips? Do you have any give me some advice. Like, how am I supposed to lose the only anchor I had in my life, which was going to that office twice a week, and still remain like a human being?
Well, so one of the things that makes this situation a little trickier than usual, though, is some of the things I would usually recommend are no longer really responsible options. Right. Like, one of the things that I would like to do is, hey, I'm going to go out and get a coffee at the shop down the street or something. That's probably not going to be the play for the foreseeable future. But I do think that for me, the big enemy is mental health in some ways, or the things that I will project or imagine in lieu of being present in person with people. So I think that the weirdest thing about working from home for me is that I constantly have this sense of being both guilty, but also laboring under suspicion that I am not really working. And that makes it very easy. And that becomes self-fulfilling because then it becomes very easy to be like, damn, I do not feel like I got enough done today. I better work longer.
I better stay later. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're not going to be getting more done. You're just going to be like, keeping the status light green in Slack. And that's pointless. And so the thing is, and now as someone whose job is partly to monitor things like how is a team doing, what are people up to, nobody looks at it that way, right? That is entirely a narrative that like I will create in my head.
Right.
But nobody is sitting there being like, damn, I haven't heard from Austin in like 25 minutes.
Right.
What the fuck is Austin doing?
What the fuck is Austin up to? That said, there was that period when we were working from home more often because we were trying to do streams and stuff. And it is easier to fall into bad habits in terms of not checking in because you're just like about your house. So you're just walking around. You're like, oh, I'll just go make lunch and then I'll just like set up my computer in there and then like just won't worry about being on Slack, you know? And that has definitely hit me. Patrick, do you have any working from home tips?
I think the one because I shared some of these in an email when we were like as a team, like Motherboard and Vice Games, Waypoint, we're trying to figure out what people should do now that they're home. And one of the things that I do is so I have an Apple Watch, and you can turn off like it's annoying. What's up, man? You want to stand? Like, you ever thought about standing before in your life? You lazy piece of shit. And I take that to just be, I don't actually, at working from home, just getting up and doing things is not something you do as often because you just aren't interrupted in the way that you get interrupted at an office. And so whenever I get that notification, more often than not, or at least say half the times in a workday, it's like, okay, I'm going to go put away the dishes. I'm going to go do some laundry. I'm just go do something, something like gets me up, call someone, take care of some texts. Like, oh, I was supposed to change the air filter, in the house. Like, I'm going to go do that now. Like, just something that just like get up, think about what's something that I could do that's not work, because when you work from home, you don't get those micro interruptions or conversations in the same way that you do in an office. And so that becomes just like a regular reminder, like, there's probably something else you could do, and it's probably time to take a 5-minute break. So I'll get up, do that, and that's one of those things. My dog, having a dog helps.
Does it though?
Well, I have a cat basically, so it's great. She just sits on a couch all day and doesn't do anything. She scratches at the door when it's between 11 and 12 because it's time to be fed, and she goes on walks 3 times a day, for about 20 minutes. And so if you have a dog, that gets you out of the house on purpose because they need to do their business. But even if you just like set alarms for yourself during the day, like, hey, like go on a walk. I think if you're working from home newly, you're not used to habits. And so, like setting reminders or alarms for yourself that's like, go do anything else. Don't work right now for 5 minutes is maybe a useful way to start training yourself to think that there are things to do other than, working.
Yeah.
So hold on though, Patrick, can you share with them the thing you sent me yesterday? Your bouquet of timer reminders.
Well, I have.
I want to see this.
I have a bad memory. Always have. It's always been a weakness of mine. And so remembering things like once a month change the air filter is just like not something I'm going to like. I'll remember it 3 weeks after when I'm just like sitting around and going, right, I'm supposed to change that monthly. It's been 2 months. And so knowing that it's my response, like as this person who stays home most of the time, I do a lot of the house upkeep, so my wife doesn't have to. And so I have like this I use the reminders app on my phone, like judiciously. So I sent like Rob like a screenshot when we were talking about something else. It's like, clear and washer filter, change my razor, cancel Apple TV. Like, how am I going to remember to cancel Apple TV Plus in a year? Like, why would I do that?
Yeah. Shudder.
Yeah, cancel
October 28th, your day is coming.
Incredible.
Judgment will be passed.
Because on Halloween last year, they had a 50% off sale, which means my subscription goes to October 31st, 2020. And you know what I'm absolutely not going to remember is to cancel that thing before October 31st, 2020. And so I'm someone that it drives me up a wall to like pay for things or not do things because I forget them. And so I just have like a huge list of like 25 active reminders of like various things that happen during the month or even the course of a year. Like the moment I sign up for like a 2-week subscription because I don't want to pirate something and it's on Stars. Yeah. So it's like, fine, I'll just sign up for Stars. But the reason they make that one button away is because 90% of people are not going to cancel it. And I refuse to be in that 90. I want to be, I want to be in the 1%. the 1% of people who will remember to cancel that Star subscription. So I have this, like, believe me, I cannot be shamed here, Rob. I have a bad memory, and I just have all these things that just remind me.
I admire it. Like, look,
I've seen your notebook.
We all have our methodology, but for me, like, I look at that and I'm like, that's terrifying. That is so much. That is
I don't
so
look at it,
many
though.
nudges.
I don't look at it.
No, but yes, I know. But also, I don't want my phone like. See, this is the weird thing. For me, like opening the notebook and seeing all the items, all the tasks, I'm like, I'm in control of life, and my phone ringing or like sending me a push notification, at that point it's like, oh my god, I am a slave to this thing.
You're a slave to the air filter one way or another, and so I'd rather forget. Like if I had to let's
live in a world where we just don't give a shit about what's going on with that air filter.
That's me.
No. Oh no.
I got an air conditioner in this room. It's in a box. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, take
That's
a drink.
the Austin Walker model. There we go.
Austin's starting to get warm.
Yeah, this is it. We're in the window. We're in the window where this is the moment.
It's fully spring out here. It's 50s and 60s
I think
in the
this
Midwest.
is it.
So
I think I have to get this in March or April, or I'm fucked. If we hit May, it's not going to happen again.
Dear listener,
narrator,
he did not.
I did.
Dear listener, who may or not be kind of handy and live in or near
It's not
Queens.
handiness. It's I have to rearrange my entire room. I'm standing.
Yeah, those things are so fucking heavy, dude. Like those.
I
those
have
things
a roommate. I have
like,
a roommate. We're two big dudes. My roommate's name is Thor. It's fine. His name is Thor, but it's spelled Thor. So we're good. Don't worry about it. Shout outs to my roommate Thor. I had another thing about working from home, but I've lost it, and that's okay. We can move on. I think we've done this bit long enough. I hope everyone out there is staying safe. I hope people out there are not directly or indirectly affected. I mean, everyone is indirectly affected at this point.
Yeah, I don't know.
I
can't go to. I don't think I'm going to a wedding later this month that I was supposed to go to in Georgia with my mom. So
be honest, were you looking forward to this wedding, or is this kind of a
be honest?
Does anyone in my family listen to this podcast? Probably not. In the hierarchy of like
risk.
I was very excited to go to where it was, which is in Savannah, Georgia. It's a beautiful area.
I wasn't excited to go to the wedding, but I was excited to go to where it was.
Yeah,
seems like a cool place.
Yeah. It's a very hot place, which is would have been the point in the middle of March. But I don't know. Like at the point that I probably shouldn't bring my mother and then leaving my wife behind. It just does. I don't know that. I think the wedding might get canceled. The problem is, and this leads into we listened to our E3 conversation. I was talking about this with my mom. Was like, well, look, my cousin is probably facing down the barrel of. Who can you even buy crisis insurance for a wedding? Like, I don't know. It's been long enough that I don't remember how that works. But like, regardless,
in my head it was crisis with a Y.
What? Mm-hmm. What would that be? What would that be, Rob? Rob, what would crisis insurance be?
I don't know.
Maybe Crytek should have gotten some. Honestly,
protecting your rig.
Crytek, that's done, right? Everything is that.
Those things still exist.
Do they still exist?
They were saved by by selling to another black hole of game development. No. When they sold their engine to Amazon, and that turned into lumber or whatever it was called.
Yeah,
like where Amazon, the company they can't make anything, but don't worry, they're very excited about their colonialist MMO. The one thing they're gonna get out the door. I guess they got that bad racing game out, didn't they? They made that.
Yeah, they did. The Grand Tour?
Top Gear, Grand Tour, or something like that.
But Crytek did also, just real quick, correct myself, Crytek did make Hunt Showdown, which is really good, and I've been playing that a little bit, and it's still really good. Anyway.
The question like probably facing my cousin, like lots of other people that have like weddings in the next like 90 days is, well, if you elect to cancel it, you probably, even if there is like insurance or contingencies, like you probably can't collect on that. You need the government to come in and say, hey, gatherings over 100 people, nah, like you just can't do it. At that point, it's not an act of God. It's the government saying, like that's just the way a lot of these like policies work. It's been fascinating to watch like the Hollywood start to grapple with this as they delay Bond. You know what? Tom Hanks, that hurt me in my heart. But then in my heart of hearts, delaying A Quiet Place 2, really, that's finally I am feeling the effects of the coronavirus.
Oh my God.
So, because it's like, okay, so let's say the wedding keeps going. Is that but none of your elderly family, which makes up like huge chunks, can go, like, can't. It's just weird, which leads into the whole E3 question of, we saw GDC cancel at basically the last second because they got caught in like the beginning stages of people being like, do we need to not, PAX East went on. Like, PAX East,
sure did.
If it was, I don't blame them for going forward. At that point, I think it was reasonable to think that you could have gotten through it. It was in that early stages of cancellation. GDC got caught in the firestorm of it, and then where like cities were just declaring states of emergency. San Francisco did so, I think, the week before GDC canceled. I don't know if that like played into it.
And it would have, just to be clear, it would have fucking been bad, right? GDC was supposed to be March 15th through March 19th.
Oh my! Can you imagine that now? It would be a ghost town.
Yeah.
No, there'd be no presentations, no events. So that all happens, and then the first thing I heard out of people once GDC was canceled was well, E3's got to be next. But the wave of all of this has been when I asked people at PAX East, like, oh, it'll never get canceled. And then you had people pull out, and then when we moved to GDC, it was, oh, that'll never get canceled. And then GDC got canceled. And then after GDC, it was like, oh, is E3 going to get canceled? It's like, oh, well, E3's not going to get canceled. But
I mean,
E3 is in bad shape, and
already.
Boy, wouldn't the coronavirus be a convenient, if still correct, two things can be true, that E3 needed to be canceled for health-related reasons. It is the socially right thing to do to not be together in that way right now. Could it also be the case that E3 is in financial shambles, was only moving forward because it takes up 50% of the ESA's annual revenue? Isn't it weird that it is the only major convention that is also run by the content providers that create video games in the industry and also organize their event that also is run by an organization that lobbies on behalf of that industry? That's fucking weird. Don't you think it's maybe they might be reluctant to give up 50% of their annual revenue?
Yeah.
And maybe that creates I don't know, conflicts of interest for the industry. So anyway, E3's canceled.
Well, E3 is canceled.
Yeah, I mean that show was in rough shape. Like when what is it?
I Am 8-Bit had just dropped out
on it.
Yeah.
That was. They didn't say like because I Am 8-Bit is so concerned about COVID-19, we're not going to produce the show.
They seem
Instead,
concerned
the message
for
is very
different
much
reasons.
like, good fucking luck, buddy.
Yeah, it was.
We wish you luck.
Yep.
Wow.
Did they though? I'm not sure they did.
Yeah.
I feel like they don't wish us luck.
No.
Yeah. Well,
Keeley also, right? Keeley had already also dropped out. No more Coliseum.
Yep.
That was very much like, good luck with this. So, God, we will see. We will see if other events later in the year, because like Gamescom is what, August, and that hasn't been canceled.
Have you go look up photos?
I
of
know.
Gamescom?
I can't even think about it right now.
If you think PAX is a lot of people,
Yeah.
E3 is not a lot of people. E3 is last year the definition of not a lot of people. There were larger gatherings for the various places that serve beer, like a relatively recent phenomenon to E3 as a whole, than there were for a number of booths at E3.
Gamescom is like 400,000 people. It's so many people.
But what does this mean for, like, games are still being made, but a major part of, like, for large releases is the entire marketing campaign, and that is a big component of that is in-person events, trade shows, etc. I am curious how people are going to handle this. You got a game wrapping at a certain point, but at this point, none of your major marketing events are going to exist. And by the way, nobody's going to attend your private event either. At least for the foreseeable future. Like,
so you're gonna have to go do one-on-one meetings with like press, which is a logistical nightmare.
Right.
Like unlikely to happen.
Do you do the thing of like, we're gonna just rent out a hotel room and bring press in one at a time and wipe everything down between visits? Like, I bet a
lot of people choose not to show.
Those.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But, well, I mean, like right now, like Sony is on a domestic, well, just a flight lockdown. Like their employees are not allowed, which is not unusual. That is. I mean, Sony has been, early and aggressive in their response. They were the ones that pulled out of PAX East, and to Rob's point, that was supposed to be the kickoff to, the marketing campaign for The Last of Us, the Last of Us, severely crunching Last of Us Part 2, according to a report by Jason Schreier of Kotaku this one up this morning. So go read that. It seems bad. And so it's like, what do you do? And this, I've heard this from folks within various companies, including Sony, of like, how do we tell people about our game? And like Hollywood's answer has been we just punt. We just say we move Bond from March to November. They took a $50 million loss. Their $4.1 million Super Bowl ad, poof, like all for fucking naught. And they just, because I believe this is the number on Bond was they're losing 50 to not lose 300 million. And so at what point, a game like Animal Crossing, I think, is resistant to any of this, right? Like, if anything,
this is going to be a month.
Boom time.
Yeah,
there's maybe a market. There's maybe they've missed a marketing opportunity to set this game live early to be.
Hey, why is Tom Nook all of a sudden like offering collateralized loans?
I thought you were going to say hand sanitizer, but
like masks.
Yeah, God, the fucking loans. I don't know. March 2020 is definitely going to be. Like, I think that there is something. I think that there is something really. Kind of gauche about the thing I'm about to say, but I suspect in the discourse, this month of games is going to take on a sort of secondary status as being like, oh, does everyone remember that month when Animal Crossing and Doom and Half-Life Alyx and Neo 2 and Ori and the Will of the Wisps and Grand Blue Fantasy Versus all hit, and we were all sick and we all had to stay inside and it was quarantined. And
and Resident Evil 3 and Final Fantasy 7 are both first week of
week
and a half of April.
Jeez, yeah. So I think that there will be. I suspect that there will be an almost mythical quality in the discourse, whether it's earned or not, and whether or not that's appropriate or not is secondary to
new,
what I'm describing. I think I suspect will happen regardless.
Right.
Was holiday 1996 or 98, which is the
one of those, right?
Where MGS and Ocarina of Time both came out in the same season.
Yeah, totally.
Half-Life I think was the same year as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think that's definitely gonna happen. We'll see about other events. Obviously, again, in terms of our shit, we're just gonna keep doing what we tend to do already. We thankfully did.
And we're gonna have lots of good takes that will hold up in years to come.
Oh, definitely.
And we'll be proud of years later that we answered the moment.
Yeah.
We found the correct words, the right position, and there's nothing to be embarrassed about.
Ever.
Rob, what do you do?
Right.
What do you do when you are a content provider in which everyone's talking about coronavirus, but coronavirus stories don't particularly do good traffic, but you can't put your other takes out there because no one's talking about anything else? It's a real pickle, Rob.
Well, Patrick, my solution there will be to just have my normal takes, do my normal criticism, but make everything about me and coronavirus. Mm-hmm. And I think it in years to come, people will be like, damn, like Rob really captured,
the moment.
Rob really captured in this review of
your Doom Eternal review is gonna really capture the zeitgeist.
Yeah, exactly. We very much like
as I rip and tear, just like I go through the toilet paper.
That's not it.
I don't know.
Just like Corona ripped and teared through the country.
Right. Thank you, Cado.
Wow.
Thank you, Cado. Someone get this boy a column. Is the New York Times hiring? What's going on over there these days?
God.
I didn't hear any race science.
How we got to be close to, maybe this is going to be our transition to politics, but how soon, where's the Barry Weiss, Brett Stevens take? Like, I feel like there's been a void. We haven't gotten a lot of that right now, and so I feel like we are ripe for some.
Why are you putting this out into the world? Just leave them alone.
Don't put this energy out there. Don't put this energy out there.
Somewhere Brett Stevens' fingers started tingling.
Yeah.
David Brooks is just happy we've achieved equality because now we're all scared of the Italian deli.
Yeah. Finally.
Oh my god.
Finally. I guess the biggest thing that I think this group of people maybe wants to say something about too is the NBA stuff, right? Like, because we kind of plotted a course from small events to medium-sized events to large-sized events being canceled, but like the NBA season is now canceled, and also you can almost find the ground zero. You can almost find the patient zero. Maybe you can. I mean. Okay, there was reporting out that basically...
there were names dropped, weren't there?
Well, the specific thing is that there had been there had been a divide among owners about what to do generally, and like whether or not they wanted to cancel a few games or play with empty stadiums or whatever. And there was, I mean, my favorite thing about this was the Woj, was Wojo? What? How do I pronounce this fucking? How do people talk about
Woj-bomb?
Just I know
so they say
Woj,
I'm saying
but I don't know if there's
It must be then.
Well,
I thought it was Wojnowski.
There's an R in there though. Anyway,
but everyone says just say Woj because that's what everyone.
That's fine. Several teams were willing to put games on hiatus, but the rest wanted to move towards eliminating fans from arenas to continue playing games. Sources tell ESPN. One team wanted to keep status quo until a government/public mandate dictated change. The New York Knicks. Fucking James Dolan.
Dolan just wants to euthanize his fans.
It's unbelievable. But yes, I do think it's super interesting that the NBA is done for indefinitely, and also done after Rudy Gobert drubbed every microphone in front of him in a clip that is the most infuriating thing.
Touch it.
Just it's so bad. It's so bad. And now he has COVID-19. So,
well, and with that, like,
oh, go ahead.
No, and the nature of this was that, like, once it's in a locker room, at that point, like, they've been playing games. Like how sure can you be that this isn't now working its way through the league?
Yep.
And so, like, once it was in a locker room, that basically foreclosed the option of playing the games to empty arenas, because now, like, you can't have Jazz players in contact with other teams. They cannot be out on a court, right?
Well, and they've been on courts.
Guard a
That's
Jazz.
The thing.
Maybe this would work out well for the Jazz.
Well, you don't know how long it's been cycling through the league. Right?
Exactly.
I mean, there's the very Orwellian bit before we realized what was actually going on, where people over the announcers, like in the stadium for the Jazz Thunder game, I think it was, were like, "You're safe, everything is fine, but you need to leave. Everyone needs to leave the stadium. You're safe. It's fine. But you need to leave." And it was just like, nothing about that makes me feel like,
this is,
I mean, sure. Like, it's not like a virus. It's like a little enemy in a video game, like cycling his way through the crowd necessarily, but nothing about that statement, like, makes me feel like, cool, time to get in my car and go home and just, oops, the basketball game is over.
I'm definitely going to leave in a calm, orderly fashion now. I mean, like, I think one of the really scary and also infuriating parts of seeing this entire thing unfold is that for a while it's been clear that this thing was not being effectively contained, right? Mm-hmm. And everyone has been sort of left in this limbo state of, should we be doing this? Should we be hosting this? Should I go out to this thing? Should this be open? Should we still be going into the office? And everyone is kind of figuring it out for themselves, but that pretty much guarantees that it can't be contained, right? Like, the time to start instituting pretty drastic measures to shut things down and stop this thing's rapid spread was probably a week ago. And it's just frustrating that for the sake of conducting business as usual and avoiding the kind of disruptions to the economy and to a variety of business models, right? Like, this is going to be brutal on hospitality workers, especially. Yep. And my heart goes out to them because it is scary, and these are the most vulnerable workers, in the economy. But
in so many ways, just to like zoom in on that for a second, like the folks who are working service jobs, the folks who are still working retail, the folks who are working in places where shipping will continue to happen, or like bringing in freight, people who are on like the front lines of all these things, and also obviously nurses and healthcare workers who are like very, very much so putting themselves at risk to help people. Though maybe less doctors. And so the thing I'm about to say is that a lot of those people are making very little money. A lot of those people are not necessarily on really good healthcare plans. A lot of those people are already in a lot of debt, and there are also people who are in situations where, let's say that the government decides to, give some sort of payout to companies to allow for a couple of weeks off or something like that. A lot of those workers who are like contract workers, people who are working in the gig economy, they might not get that same extension that a white collar office worker gets, right? Or that same offer of help. That like we're in a situation right now where the people on this call, there's a world in which, let's say Vice said, hey, mandatory time off for 3 weeks to all full-time employees. Cado and I would not get that, right? Yeah. My suspicion is our managers would figure out a way to keep money in our pockets and keep our rent paid. But that's like a very clear illustration of the way that this works, is that like the same benefits
Italy
don't
just
always reach out.
suspend like mortgage payments?
They did.
Briefly.
And other bills, but I don't know if you're a renter in Italy what that looks like.
Right.
I just don't know.
I mean, the neoliberal model is that homeowners are people. Everyone else, good luck.
Yeah. Everyone else can aspire.
I think that. But the other dynamic of this, too, that makes it so destructive is, in addition to having a lot of these workers be really vulnerable from the standpoint of lack of protections and benefits, but also needing the business to be ongoing. Right? Like if you're a tip worker, you need customers coming through the door. If you're a commissions salesperson, you need traffic. But I think the other part of this is, I don't know what the situation is at Vice, but I do know a lot of companies I've worked at, cleaning staff, the people who will be sanitizing your office, the people who will be cleaning it, after everyone goes home and before people arrive in the morning, are not employees of the company. They are workers for a subcontractor who has a cleaning contract for the building. And in addition to, again, these folks probably not having benefits or great coverage, if any, which is going to create that is also going to create a hazard where these are folks who can't take a day off. Even if they should, they can't take a day off. Is it a cold or is it coronavirus? If your making rent requires you coming in and getting that shift, you're going to hope it's a cold. And that is, again, going to further make this thing spread really difficult to manage.
Yeah. No, it's a lot. I feel like there's a degree to which the hardest thing the most important thing for me to personally realize is the ways in which I could be a vector for this stuff, even if I feel fine, even if I'm taking my own precautions, removing myself from I was just trying to explain this to a friend who didn't quite understand what made COVID-19 such a different thing than the regular flu. And the analogy that I ended up using, and maybe this is helpful for people listening who don't quite get it either, or who need to explain it to somebody else, is that regular flu season already sucks, and it's like having a bunch of car crashes on the side of the road on a highway. It sucks. It slows things down a little bit. People get hurt 100% already. You're at risk already. Of a regular flu knocking you out or hurting you or hurting a family member. That's already the case. But when in regular flu season, because so many people are already immunized, because there's already so many safety mechanisms in place, and because there's not such a heavy impact on the healthcare system, it doesn't stop you from going on your trip, right? Maybe you'll be a little bit late, maybe there's some rubbernecking, but there's not a real complete stop. The risk of this virus specifically is the weight it puts all at once. It's more like a 50-car pileup, which is both more dangerous because in the moment it could catch more people, but also it just grinds everything to a halt in a way. And
you can't get to the people in the center of the wreckage.
Exactly.
At that point, clearing the debris is such a task that people who could have been saved are lost, just because at this point the scale of this thing,
there just aren't enough respirators. There just aren't enough. There isn't enough. Very basic stuff that we rely on because the supply lines have been broken in different ways, which isn't meant to send anyone into a panic, but it is. I do want to encourage people who are, especially in our age bracket, who maybe are taking it very lightly in terms of their own safety, to think about the ways in which your own safety is secondary to the harm you could cause as a vector in the system. I think we do our best to be very conscious and very socially aware and very leftist, and leftism at its root is understanding that the world is maybe not its root, that the world is a system or a network, but it is an important part of that. Is understanding that we are people who exist inside of systems and contribute to the way that they move. And this is a way in which this illustrates that in maybe the most like depressing way possible. All of the global supply chain has suddenly come into view. All of those little things that are invisible in daily life that we think of as natural have suddenly, and you see this when you see right-wing people suddenly decide that they want a little bit of, can I have a bit of socialized medicine as a treat? Yes, that they're good with. But the entire like corruption of that industry, of the healthcare industry, suddenly becomes apparent. Suddenly all of the shipping relationships that we have come into focus when you talk about them.
Well, and even like this is like this does tie so closely into the politics of this moment, right? And the things we've sort of been discussing, particularly around the Democratic primary for ages. Like these things, discussions around like the social safety net, trade policy, these things do tie into real world consequences. And I think one of the things about the post Cold War era certainly is that there was it was a long period of stability for a great many wealthy countries, and there was a great deal of luck in terms of the sort of crises that sprang up. But a lot of what we were fed over the last like 20 or 30 years was this notion of like, okay, well, Ricardian efficiency means you don't need to have domestic manufacturing. Mm-hmm. You can just you can offshore that. We'll offshore it to one geographic region in the world, and we'll pay the energy cost of shipping the goods from that region of the world, China and Southeast Asia, and as the manufacturing base continues to move around in search of cheaper and cheaper labor, even saying that it's all located in China is probably going a bit too far. That's sort of behind the times. But this is how you end up in a crisis like this without a clear path of getting out of it, right? One of the things that that seems to be happening here is a lack of ability to test and track where COVID-19 is, and we are not set up to just emergency produce a bunch of COVID kits. That is not something that does not appear to be something the United States can do on a dime at this point. And so these things are being doled out like gold, which is not going to really contain it. And the lack of an effective social safety net means that a lot of people who might otherwise have not been vectors for disease were forced to choose, like, what risk am I willing to run, and what risk am I going to unintentionally run for other people? This is the cost for a lot of that stuff all hitting up, and it's why these issues are so important. And I think, in the last 30 years, there was this sense that leftists are just so heated. They want the free stuff. They just want things to be a little easier.
Hillary Clinton describe Medicare for all as asking Papa for a pony for your birthday?
Oh God, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like we've heard variations on that rhetoric, and I think this is the flip side, and this is one of the situations where "I told you so" is not what people want to hear. But I do think part of like politicizing crises is pointing out they become crises because of political choices and problems deferred.
Yeah, totally. Do we want to take a break and then talk about video games? Do we want to do a longer politics thing? Do we want to save that for the post chat?
Let's wait for after the debate, because I think we'll have a better sense of.
They better not cancel that fucking debate.
Dude, if they fucking can't, I'm already pissed that we didn't get a debate between Super Tuesday and what every news site I went to decided was called Super Tuesday 2, which I think is showing your hand too. Oh, you didn't see that all over, plastered all over. All the Super Tuesday 2 was last week. I don't know if you caught that.
I hate our media economy.
It's
fucking hate
bad, my guy. It sucks out here. But yeah, let's wait until the debate. I just want to say briefly, I'm happy we're having a debate. I think all of us here we're anticipating bad results in this past Super Tuesday. Fuck, I just did it. I meant to say Tuesday, and I said Super Tuesday this past Super. You know what? From here on out, in the world of COVID-19, every Tuesday is a Super Tuesday. We just got to just bring it in. We're going into Super Tuesday 3 coming up. I don't know if there's any primaries.
Super Tuesday.
Yeah, this is where we eventually get to the Tuesday. We just say to Tuesday over and over again, and eventually it becomes the due day.
My vote won't matter in the Illinois primary on the 17th, but that's the Tuesday.
But that's Tuesday.
I'm still going out there. I'm still voting Bernie.
Do your
and
Tuesday.
It might still matter.
It might still matter. We'll fucking see, right?
In Illinois.
Wait, Illinois is not winner take all, right?
It matters everywhere. It matters everywhere, Patrick. Don't say shit like this.
I was here 4 years ago. I'm just okay. Yeah, sure.
I know what you mean.
I'm still voting. I'm not saying change your vote. I'm still going to vote Bernie. I did that last time too, and I remember the numbers.
It's deeply
I'm being like on an even keel.
Yeah,
I am fairly on an even keel, but I will say the difference between now and 4 years ago is like the shit is hitting the fan in a way that it was not 4 years ago, and I think. Probably there's a little more pressure on Biden to actually show like he's up for this than there's been on a candidate in a while. Sure. So like, the window of opportunity seems like narrowed to a pinhole for sure. On the other hand, these are unusual times, and I think I'm curious to see how this all plays out. Because there's a lot that I certainly want to see and hear from Biden at this point.
Yeah, definitely. I'm very excited for an actual debate. At this point, whether or not that debate results in more votes or in concessions from the center of the party, I think that both of those are goals that we should be fighting for now. And in general, for those of us who are like, I think right now you can put the kind of Bernie supporters into a couple of different camps. Always, obviously, no one's a monolith. But the kind of big ones that have emerged are people who are like, well, we're done. Like doomsayers, and people who are saying, no, we can still win. I think there's probably a more useful or pragmatic position to have. Is like, well, what do we do next regardless? Because a lot of that stuff is going to be necessary no matter what when it comes to supporting certain down ballot races, when it comes to building local organizations and support among leftists in your community, when it comes to like joining actual organizations that already exist on the ground, or choosing an issue that matters to you, like prison abolition, or something else that matters to you very personally. And getting involved in that way, that stuff is going to happen. We needed that anyway, right? So to some degree, there is a phase 2 switch here, and what we hope for is a great debate and a change in the way these numbers look. But if we don't get that, I think the second thing is like, well, how do we start holding the center of the party accountable if they have Joe Biden as the candidate and in the world in which he wins, and regardless of if he wins or if Trump wins or if Bernie somehow spins this thing around and takes it to the White House, we still need to be involved. And so that second step is where our head should be at this point. So that was the one thing I wanted to say this week before we get to the debates. Let's take a break.
Big 10 canceled.
Wow, really? Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, really you're gonna do it with empty like you're gonna like it just yeah, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back to talk about video games. All right, we're back, and we're here to talk about video games finally. If you were here, you were like, I want to hear my friends talk about something comforting.
I'm here,
like
coronavirus everywhere. I'm here for games.
For games. Forget that. I'm here for games. I'm here to play video games. We don't got those games. Chad Warden. All right, sorry. I thought about Chad Warden for a second, and don't go look up Chad Warden. Chad Warden was probably extremely homophobic and bad. But I had to remember him as a blip in the history of video game fandom. Today we're talking about video games. There's a bunch of them out. There's a bunch of them out right now. Right? We kind of talked about this in the first half that we're going into the world of video games. Next week I think we're going to talk about some Animal Crossing. I think the biggest thing this week in terms of new releases is probably Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
Yeah, that's the start to this like really intense season. After like not much in January or February.
Don't talk down to Grand Blue Fantasy verses like that. Don't talk down to Murder by Numbers.
Murder by Numbers is great.
Those games can still be good. I'm just saying like
Pokemon Mystery Dungeon.
I don't know. The reviews on that seem pretty mediocre.
They seem kind of rough. I'll be honest. They do. I haven't gotten to it. Talk to me about. So I have 5 hours in. How far in have you? How much of this have you played?
Probably about the same. I think the
the world has just opened. For
Ori, one of the more interesting review processes I've gone through. In that I didn't review it because sometimes code for video games comes extremely late. That's not surprising. I will say like the industry as a whole has like gotten better about like, hey, trying to give people at least a full week to play even long games. But this one came in like Thursday Friday morning, late Thursday. And then originally the messaging was like, hey, so different versions of this game are in rougher shape than others. Play the game on Xbox One X if you have it, which I don't because I put off buying one of those thinking I'll just wait till next gen. It's like, I'll play it on PC. Cool. PC version is not going to be available for like, we're not sure. Maybe in the weekend, maybe after. And I was like, oh, that's a problem. Ended up being available like on Friday at some point, Friday afternoon. And then over the weekend, they were like, well, so, all right, now actually if you can play the Steam version, like the PC version seems to have like the more advanced, like the newest version of the game. And actually if you're playing on Xbox Series X, like if you can't, like it was just like a really weird amount of messaging. It sounded like the game was coming in extremely hot. It is still being patched. I ran into an issue this week, a couple days ago. It's the last I'd done where like there's a sad moment. I mean, Ori, the last game and the new game are both full of sad moments. But it's a moment where like the game switches control to a different version of Ori where you cannot use your abilities. Like he's straight up moping. It's a moping animation. I'm sad because a sad story event occurred here.
That didn't land for me at all, by the way, but we'll talk about that.
We can definitely talk about that. But when I went back to there, so in Ori and the Will of the Wisps, there are these things called, which for people that aren't aware, it's a Metroid style game. It's one of those. But like,
if you played Hollow Knight a few years ago,
especially Dude. Will of the Wisp has some serious we played Hollow Knight vibes.
That fucking map maker is the same dude.
Is it?
Oh, no, wow. But it basically is. It's the same archetype.
I thought you meant like a designer.
No.
Why would they work?
I meant the NPC.
Let's get there because we should unpack the Hollow Knight stuff separately. But so there are these things, these combat shrines, where you go through to fighting like 4 waves of enemies, and then you get the ability to equip a new ability simultaneously. So like you start out with, you can equip 3 at once, and then if you do a combat shrine, you can do 4. I was heading up to 5, and I did that. I like warped over, did that combat shrine, and then like wanted to leave, but this little section of the level, if you went back to it, and I needed to jump over this gap, when I would jump over the gap, mid-gap, Ori would turn sad and sink like a rock because he lost all of his abilities and was like incapable of like, and if you like tried to trick it where it's like, all right, a double jump and then dash, like I could literally, you could literally see, you could walk up to the edge and you see what his head would just go, and at that point you couldn't do any of your ability. You couldn't jump, you couldn't dash, you couldn't do anything. And so I would jump and then dash across, and I could land on the other side, which was a pit of spikes, but I couldn't jump out of the pit of spikes. I ended up making my way out by like climbing another wall and kind of squeezing my way out. But it's like all to say, there's like been big performance issues. There are some glitches. There are. It's a kind of game that I would maybe warn people to like give a week or two. I think it'll all get sorted out. It's not terrible, but it's the kind of thing where you'd probably be best off waiting a little bit. But when it does sort its shit out, or if you play the game and you don't run into these issues, I am head over heels for it. I think it is. I recently played through Ori and the Blind Forest and had real serious. I like played through it on Switch when I had a flu, and I had like serious issues with a lot of small decisions the game makes. Like for example, in Ori and the Blind Forest, you make your own checkpoint. Right. So like as you're running around, you hold down like the A button, and you use a little bit of your magic, your MP, and you can create a checkpoint, which sounds really cool. Until you like go 10 minutes without doing a checkpoint, and then you die, and then you go back those 10 minutes and go, oh, that sucks. This game gets rid of that. It just autosaves constantly. Frequently. Like you just don't have to worry about that anymore. You're not spending magic. And that was also the thing, was that you get into situations where you don't have any more magic points and you thus can't create a checkpoint. And so you're like wandering around trying to get more. It was a good idea that like scaled poorly as the game got more difficult, especially. And this game doesn't have that. The combat was also something that I didn't think scaled well in Ori and the Blind Forest, where enemies just became bullets, sort of like attack sponges. The way attacks worked in Ori and the Blind Forest primarily was you like these kind of like wispy arrows like shot out around. It was
like almost having like an option in a side-scrolling shooter, like Gradius or whatever. You get like an auto fire, you get a bit that follows you around,
And you had some other options. That was your primary means of attack, and it was just annoying. Like you would die constantly to higher level enemies in a way that just wasn't enjoyable. And the combat here gets rid of that, in which you have like much more direct action. You have a sword. You got
a fucking lightsaber. It's
lightsaber. You have a bow and arrow. You have
a hammer if you get that upgrade.
I haven't gotten that yet. I've heard it's.
Let me tell you, but the thing about that hammer is it doesn't cost any energy to use.
Oh, that's great. Because it's just there are suites of abilities in the new one that are out of your magic pool, and then there are suites of abilities that are just stuff that Ori can do, like a double jump or a triple jump that doesn't come out of the magic pool. And I didn't realize the hammer came out of that one. But
there's
really cool.
Second upgrade for the hammer is extremely powerful. It's like a downward. Oh, have you fought those bugs that jump and they do like the crystal AoE around them? It does like you just get that. It's just super easy to clear out all ground enemies with it. Yeah.
I'm really loving the game. I think it addresses a lot of fundamental concerns I had about Ori and the Blind Forest, and it's somehow even more beautiful than the last game was. Like it's like really, I don't even know how to describe. I mean, it's like it frequently looks like a painting, but I feel like that understates how beautiful the game frequently looks. It has serious Shadow of the Colossus vibes. There are like just straight up frequent run-ins with sort of like kaiju-esque creatures that are littered about the world and are kind of like the guardians of various areas. And because the combat is better, I think I can't understate like how annoying that made like the back half of the first game upon revisiting, where like the painterly look wasn't doing as much heavy, you know what I mean? Like the charm aspect had worn off because I'd seen it all before. And so it laid bare a lot more of the underlying mechanics and the parts of that didn't work as well. And I think the core competency of this one is just exponentially better and more enjoyable than the first game was.
This is a Horizon Zero Dawn for me. This
Fast
is
9 delayed a full year to April 2021.
What is
Fast 9?
Wow. Damn. A full year. They are not confident that thing will do any numbers in the fall or winter.
It's a huge international movie.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Damn.
Anyway, sorry. This is a Horizon Zero Dawn or
avoid family gatherings.
Or a Damn. This is a Horizon Zero Dawn or a what was that game? What was that Platinum game that reviewed really well, except for me? That I was like, we're all gonna forget
children.
Slave animals.
Astral Chain.
Astral Chain. Slave animals. Yeah.
Demons, please.
This is a game where. So I guess background is I played very little of Ori 1. I bounced off of it very quickly. I didn't play it for years after it came out. Maybe if I played it right when it came out, I would have really liked it. But I played it when I got an Xbox One, which was only a few years ago. And so it was like on Game Pass. And I was like, oh yeah, let me grab that. Let me try that. And I was like, I'm good. I played other stuff that I like a little bit more than this. I thought it looked really beautiful. This has been, I've put more time into this than I did into the first Ori. I put 5 hours into this. I'm past I guess I would say it's an act break, without talking about specifics, but I think it's past like a big sad moment, a few hours into the game. And you it's the first time the map really opens up and it goes, the will of the Wisps. It's not a late title card, but it's like, here is what the Wisps are. Here is what you'll be doing.
Here are 3 areas that you theoretically can do in any order.
You've rebuilt the Lord Vessel. Now the world opens up and you can go to the various areas. I think everything Patrick said is probably true. And that if you like this type of game, this feels like one that's easy to recommend for all the reasons Patrick just said. I'm having this like second level problem with it, which is to say it isn't like, oh, the jumping feels bad or something. You know, I think at the point at which I'm at in this game, I have so many mobility tools. I'm basically never touching the ground, and that feels pretty okay. But
you get them very early. Like one of the things that's different between this and the second one is that it scatters out the mobility stuff.
You're using enemies and using enemy attacks to boost yourself around. You got a grappling hook at this point. You're doing dodge rolls. I bought that triple jump. You should buy that triple jump if you haven't yet, Patrick. It's very good. Like you get a lot of mobility, and I think that stuff is really good. I'm really thinking a big part of it for me is that Hollow Knight set a certain standard, or not a certain standard. Hollow Knight gave me a flavor that I wanted from this style of game that isn't just flavor, that is also substance. You talked about like the really quick checkpointing, and there are times when I really appreciate that because it encourages exploration and experimentation. So like for the most of the first few hours of the game, the world is covered in these like dark pink like pools of poison, basically poison water. And time and time again, I was like, oh, can I like just force it? Can I just like swim really quick through the poison and get to the other side? And the answer is no, I couldn't do that ever. Maybe it's possible, but I fucking couldn't do it. And because there was because it checkpointed right before I jumped into the water, the poison water, then I didn't lose anything. So I get the value of having that automatic checkpointing happening constantly. But it's also made me just feel completely disinterested in basically everything. Every encounter I'm in, every fight that I'm in, every puzzle, every like platforming puzzle, because there's no stakes, because I don't lose anything from dying in this game at all. And and on top of that, I found it pretty easy. And I think that the other half of this is, I think it feels mushy and syrupy, not in the sense of like it's, my inputs aren't coming through, but in the fact that like I have a 5-hit combo chain in this game. I would so much rather have 1 or 2 or 3 hits that mean a lot more. And I don't just mean that in like I should equip the hammer that does that. I mean that in terms of when I see an enemy opening, I can just mash through it and just deliver as much damage as I want to. And yeah, they'll hit me back, but I'm never in danger of dying because I have so much health and because I can quickly heal myself. It feels very, it feels like it's very, forgiving in a way that I respect, but that I don't necessarily enjoy. I got through, there's a big moment early on that kind of send you to a dungeon, right? That's like not a literal dungeon. They send you to a big water wheel that you have to kind of, explore and figure stuff out. And there's this huge moment at the end that's supposed to be this big dramatic, like, a sequence, and it didn't. I for real felt nothing, and that made me realize what a flat time I was having, because it was handled expertly in terms of technical prowess. Like I looked at the screen like, wow, a lot of things are happening here. Here are some jumps I have to make. It just completely fell flat for me, and I think that this is a difference in taste. This is not a like. I think most. Well, yeah, people
I would argue like the game, like its lack of stakes is intentional. It's
absolutely 100%.
It is a game in which the mobility is the point, and if basically like if you aren't the type of person who looks at a new mobility and goes, God damn,
I love it.
No, I
do like that stuff. That doesn't. I like that stuff. I went back. I searched through everything. I'm like 100% at all of the available things. Like I'm doing the stuff, and it's like eating paste. It's filling, but I'm not. There's no flavor to it for me.
Oh man, I could not.
I know. Well, this is why I'm framing this. This is why I'm framing this as idiosyncratic Austin, who has different taste than a lot of people. But I'm speaking to the people out there who maybe have the similar taste to me, which is like Hollow Knight felt, and I didn't even finish Hollow Knight because it got too hard. Like this is the dilemma for me, right? I couldn't get through some of Hollow Knight's platforming challenges. 100% couldn't do it. But that world felt so realized and so capital L lore person over here. It felt like there was something behind everything. And there's like lowercase L lore here. There's like, here are the cool animals and they have their history and whatever, but it doesn't come close to me for feeling like I'm exploring a real space that had a history and had like a people and blah, blah, blah that Hollow Knight managed to do for me. And on top of that, I think part of it is I don't love how this game looks. I think that first game really leaned, first Ori, I'm not talking about Hollow Knight here. Ori felt like a 2D, like you said painterly before. I think the first Ori in moments, I'm like, wow, that looks like an anime. That was like a Studio Ghibli movie, or looks like a literal painting. Things in this feel very rounded and 3D to me in a way that I didn't expect. And there's so much bloom or so much glow to everything that it's been distracting for me because I think the best moments are when they're much more subtle and they like dial the glow down and things are kind of like desaturated. I love those moments. I think it looks really good. But there is so much in this game that is so bright and boisterous, but the play doesn't feel that way to me, except for the moments, and this is now I'm sounding like when I talked about another game people love that I didn't love, which was Red Faction Guerrilla. My favorite moments in this game are the races where I have to be really good because there are stakes. I have to learn how to do and the combat challenges aren't bad at this either. I like the combat challenges and I like the races because they're asking me to really understand the mechanisms and the tools that they've given me. I love dashing around when there's a time limit, but when I'm just like doing it to get from place to place, I'm like, yeah, okay, like I'm doing the same path that I did last time. I'm not trying to like figure out any way to speed things up or be a little smoother or be a little safer or whatever, because the stakes are so low for me moment to moment. And that's a bummer because I do think that the bones to this thing are really, really good. This is one of those games where like I wish there were difficulty modes. I wish there was a thing could check. Okay, well maybe I'll just turn it up to hard and see if that helps. I've already put on all of the pins that make the combat harder for me, and it's still
like the Hollow Knight part of this cannot be like overstated. Like it has the entire pin gallery from Hollow Knight in which you are. So there are like 3 tiers of abilities. There are I guess there's 2, right? So there's the non-MP.
3 is probably right.
Right. So there's these like core abilities like jump, double jump, dash, grapple onto enemies, grapple onto specific objects in the environment. It's for the most part mobility based things.
Yes.
Then there are another set of abilities that are like you can explode into fire, and that causes area of effect and a time damage to enemies. You can do like a giant. There's both a regular bow and arrow, and then like this huge one that you have to pull back, and it takes like a full second or two, but it does just unbelievable damage. You can do an upgrade that does an explosion that's tied to it. And then the third tier are in Hollow Knight they're called badges, right?
I think they're called pins, but I don't remember.
Maybe
it's
but like basically
yeah.
you have this, you can equip a certain amount at this, at the same time, but you have a giant pool of them that you're pulling from, and they will do things like, oh, your arrow shot splinters into 3, or when you take you're going to take an extra 15% damage, but you're going to put out an extra 25% damage, and you can upgrade those so you can stack them and figure out like what you want to emphasize. I don't think it goes quite like, I think you can mostly ignore it and it's not going to fundamentally change like your play experience.
There's some cool stuff in there that
what I mean, like there were times in Hollow Knight where it's like, I'm not going to finish this fight unless I sit and think about what are my weaknesses, what are that enemy's weaknesses. Is it just as simple as, look, I need to stack health? Like I can do most of this fight, and if I could just survive an extra 10 seconds, I'll be able to get through it, which would happen in Ori sometimes, like or in Hollow Knight. Where it's like I just need more health. Like I don't want to. I could sit here and get better at it, but I think if I just had 10 more seconds, I could do it, and I'll get through this fight.
There were things in Hollow Knight that felt like Binding of Isaac upgrades. Do you know what I mean? Where it was like, oh, I'm just putting out weird like grubs that fight alongside with me now. Like you're truly weird.
You can do fundamental build changes, which Ori, it's more like, do you just really like doing the arrows? Here are like different. Like there are things that like change, but it's way closer to the margins that it is like core competencies of Ori. Because again, like I think at its heart, it is a game that is meant to be about like pleasant exploration, and then the player choosing where do you want to turn the dial. Like do you want, like if you really want to be held to account on your platforming, well then here are these race challenges. If you want to be held to account on your combat stuff, well then here are these combat challenges. But those are all optional, ignorable, as opposed to being part of like the core ethos of its design. And I could see why in a post like sort of like Hollow Knight world, like this feels like it doesn't land as hard.
Yeah. It makes me want to go back and finish Hollow Knight, even though I know I'm going to go back and hit a bit where I'm like, I'm going to be the other side of this again, where I'm like, I fucking know everyone loves Hollow Knight.
I'm at the end of that game. I can't do it. Like, I beat it, got the bad ending,
right,
and then didn't like have I had to move on to other stuff and didn't get a chance to do the expansion.
I'm very excited for the sequel. My hope is that the sequel dials in between these two games for me. The Hollow Knight sequel takes some lessons from Hollow Knight being too hard and like dials that down a little bit, but still keeps the degree of specificity. And again, when I'm talking about difficulty, it's not even difficulty that's my problem with Ori, because there's a version of difficulty. There's a version of Ori that I think is just more difficult, and I don't like that one very much either because some of my other issues. But it is the thing of like Hollow Knight makes every swing of the sword matter, and in Ori, I'm just wailing on that button, and I don't feel like I need to be precise in that way. And that is my real recommendation is, I think this game is on Game Pass, right? Or am I wrong about that? Yeah.
No,
if you
every
were
single
like
Microsoft
me,
game is
and
on
were like,
Game
man,
Pass.
I love parts of Hollow Knight, but it was just too fucking hard for me, I do recommend you try this, because this might be the thing for you. I do think the movement feels really good. I have very Austin Walker fucking issues with it, that are not, that I know can be, I know that it makes me sound like a fucking spoil sport or a downer or whatever, and but I have to speak my truth into the world, even when it's frustrating, you know?
I will say the story falls pretty flat for me in a lot of ways. It's specifically because it feels like it's just a direct retread of this. It's the same themes and of the first game, like
grief,
nature's messed up, and we got to fix it. And it's not even necessarily like a pure it's not like a climate change message even necessarily. It's not like outsiders came in and messed up our beautiful paradise. It's just like I don't know, vague evil thing, corruption messed up the world, and it's fine. Like I think my issue with it is that it presents as something. It clearly wants to be something more, and the leap between Ori and the Blind Forest and Ori and the Will of the Wisps is like there is so much more of an attempt at a narrative in Will of the Wisps, like where you have conversations.
There are NPCs.
There are
NPCs
quests to talk to.
There's a town that you rebuild.
Yeah, and like none of that stuff was in Ori and the Blind Forest. Was, hey, you do this area, then if you don't want 100% this area, go to the next area and come back when maybe you got some abilities. But you're just, it was a very linear path. I think in Ori and the Blind Forest, people have over-internalized the opening cutscene of that game,
right? Which
is like really like actually affecting and sad and brutal, and then painted that over the entire game when that's just not true. Like I beat that game like just a month ago, and like it mostly is just harping on that same bit for 10 hours, and this game is trying to do a similar thing. Like to set up the premise of the game, and we'll pivot on to something else, is that you've fixed things here, like, in the first game. Now there's like a larger corruption somewhere else. Even like the premise of the game is like sort of fuzzy to me. Like I don't really understand like how A connects to B. But basically, Ori has a friend. There was this big a bird creature that was a central villain of the first game, and they have had a child, and like you are I guess friends with that child, but they don't spend much time building out that friendship. And then that friend tries to fly away and gets into peril, and you need to save them. And like that's supposed to be like the core emotional like arc of the game, and it just doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't do anything for me.
I like the creature design. There's kind of a few hours in, you kind of meet a big threat, and that threat has a dope design. But the story stuff has not been hitting for me. I don't know. I'm curious if Cado or Rob, either one of you gets around to it. I'm curious what y'all end up thinking about it.
Rob, do you even play Metroid style games? That's not your thing, right?
Not really, no.
Yeah. Well, Cado then.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out.
If you liked the first one, if you like the first one, like this is, it's that game firing on all cylinders. I'm really really enjoying it.
Yeah. I want to briefly shout out the new shout-out's too strong. The Call of Duty Battle Royale hit this week. The new one. There was one last time that I've already forgotten the name of for Black Ops 4. But the new one for Modern Warfare just hit Warzone, and it's
a totally different vibe than the last time they did this, right?
It's sort of different.
Well, it's on its own.
Black
right?
Site
it's a free to play game.
You can download it by itself. Yeah, you just download the Modern Warfare client though. It's just the Modern War. They just added it to the Modern Warfare screen. But if you go over to hit the Modern Warfare button, it's like, you have to buy this, dog. You don't own this game. It is a 150-person battle royale. Or I guess there's two modes in Warzone. One of them is a 150-person battle royale with, a zone closing in as normal, and it is distinct in a couple of ways. I guess maybe the biggest one is in terms of just inventory management. There isn't really much of that. Like, you can drop ammo and gear, or like not even gear, but you can drop like ammo and armor plates for other people, but you're not managing optics. You're not like picking up different scopes. You're not picking up different types of backpacks or anything like that. You're just straight up picking up guns, and the guns might have different scopes on them, but that's the big thing. The other big thing is money. This is a game that has money and buy stations spread across the map, where you get money from either killing people and taking their money, or completing missions that show up on the map. You'll find like a pickup, and the pickup will be like, all right, there's a bounty out on this guy, go find him, kill him. Or, oh, hey, and that's like another player. Or, oh, hey, there's 3 crates we need you to go look at. Go look at those crates. Or go capture this point on the Battle Royale map, and if you do it, you get paid. And you take that money and go to a station where you spend that money on more armor plating, which is kind of a neat healing system in this game. You have Call of Duty healing in this game. Your health just comes back. The permanent thing is these 3 armor plates that you can equip in your like front jacket, like your front vest. You like zip and then slide in 3 armor plates, and those get damaged. You have to replace those, and those are kind of your permanent health. Or you can buy kill streaks from Call of Duty. You can buy UAVs. You can buy regular Call of Duty loadouts, which is what I think the people who play a lot of Call of Duty who are streaming this game are doing. Where you just buy remember the crates from PUBG that would drop? Yeah. You can buy those. You can throw a smoke, call in one of those, and when it lands, inside is your regular Call of Duty multiplayer loadouts, including your perks and guns and shit.
That's pretty cool.
It's very cool. It's just also fucked for me, who hasn't played any Modern Warfare. That doesn't do shit. I mean, you're still getting all right weapons, and you're getting perks and stuff, which is cool. And it is a neat thing. The most like gimmicky cool new thing is what happens when you die in this game. When you die, you go to the quote-unquote gulag, where you 1v1 someone for the right to re-enter the game. They put you into a 1v1 gunfight mode, while the other prisoners in the gulag look down into the fight and can throw rocks at you as you're fighting.
Oh, God, yes.
And if you win,
this is incredible.
It's the best part of this game. It's so, because like that mode gunfight was, I think I said this back on the podcast when I first played this game and was allowed to finally talk about the multiplayer. Gunfight is in the main game, I think, a 2v2 mode only. That is incredible. I think it's like the best. It's the most fun I've had in Call of Duty ever. That first Modern Warfare I played a lot of. That first Black Ops I played a lot of. But Gunfight is really good. And this 1v1 mode is just like, it's so tense and so good of like, all right, we both have the same gun. We both have the same like grenade, the same tactical grenade thing. All right, who wins? Like, let's see what happens. It's like very sudden death vibes. And if you win, you redeploy. You just like skydive in above your team again. And if you die again, they can still redeploy you by getting enough money and going to one of these these buy stations and paying to get your teammates back. And so that stuff is all really cool. I think it's kind of weird because Call of Duty is so fast in terms of combat damage and stuff. I'm having a hard time.
It's not quite. It's been a long time since I played Call of Duty multiplayer, but it's like probably like like somewhere between like if Battlefield is like it's slower, and then Counter-Strike is like, or PUBG is like turn around a corner and like boop.
Dude,
it's like somewhere in the middle.
A little bit.
Probably closer to Counter-Strike, right? It's
faster. It is. I think that's probably right. I'm thinking about the best games I've had, and I've had some I was playing with friends of the site, Will Smith and Matt Pasquale last night, and we had this incredible sequence where we were next to a stadium. There's a big stadium in the middle towards the middle of the map. That has, you can't enter, but you can walk down into the entryways that have like the concrete barriers. It's not like you're going into a stadium. There's like big concrete barriers left and right that lead into a big open like lobby or whatever, like the big open area. We like kind of ducked in one of those with the door into the stadium itself closed. And to our left, where they couldn't see us because we were behind these kind of concrete barriers, and to our right, who also couldn't quite see us, were two other groups. And they were fighting each other and trying to fight us. And we were trying to like just hold out and hope that they killed each other enough that we could kind of move out and push out and escape. And that was a great long firefight. So you do get those here. And I had another one a couple of days ago playing with Natalie, formerly of Waypoint, and Colin, formerly of Vice, and Noisy and Thump. We had a great like rooftop shootout with some people. And those sequences do go long. But there's a lot of turn the corner, shoot someone, they die. There's a lot of open the door, there's someone there, shoot them, they die, you die, whatever happens. And it's actually made it really hard to know if I'm having a good game or not. That's the other thing, is 150 people is so many fucking people that what's it mean to get 6 kills? I don't know. Is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. What is your 17th place in 50 teams of 3? Is that good? I guess it's the top half. But is it good?
Doesn't sound good.
It doesn't feel good in my blood. 9th felt okay. 17th didn't feel good, you know? And so there is a weirdness there. There's also another mode called Plunder, I think, that's all about doing missions and getting money and then getting to like an evac point where you can chopper lift the money away. And that is not a battle royale. That has respawns, but it's in the battle royale map. And that's neat in the sense that it's good. It lets you fuck around with the guns a little bit more and get a feel for the game, but it turns out without a circle pushing people together, it's really easy to fall into bad habits on a map that big where all you're doing is going room to room to loot shit because there's a billion rooms. This is the biggest map that I've played in a battle royale, and that they're going to like chop that out and put that in the back of the fucking box as if that was a compliment. And I don't mean it that way. The biggest map I've ever played in a battle royale is not the vibe. It's a big fucking map because they wanted it to be that thing. But that doesn't necessarily mean that in the non-battle royale mode, it works. The contracts and missions you can pick up do help to push people together in that mode, but it doesn't have that natural like velocity towards the center big final conflict in the same way. And the other thing here really is after the first night of playing this, I went back to playing Apex, and I still fucking love Apex. Apex has really cemented itself for me as like my favorite shooter right now. And I'll keep playing this as my friends are playing it right now, but
didn't Apex just like experiment with a thing where it's
dude, it's so cool.
They were locking. Like,
yeah.
So there's
a Apex has been like rotating through secondary modes for the last year, basically, of it being out. They've released like bonus modes on and off with each patch. The current thing in Apex is a thing called Deja Loot. And Deja Loot, basically what it does is it sets there've been 2 versions of it, one on the old map, one on the new map. And in both modes, the loot stays the same every day. So like all of the loot is in this. If you open a crate and get a sniper rifle and you start a new game there, that sniper rifle is still going to be there. So over the course of playing like 6 times, you start to get a feel for like, okay, well then we can go over there and get the good armor that's over there. And I want to say once a day also it is the circle and the dropship still changes maybe. So that it still means that like there is a degree of randomness, but the map is locked. Do you know what I mean? So it's like the stuff might be the same, but it's still a battle royale, which means the way you play through that map is going to be different every time you play because your best start might just not be accessible in the same way. And that has been really cool. It makes me feel like a lot like a mode that will go into play for tournaments because motherfucking pro players love predictability. They love to be able to be like, hey, this is reliable. And I would love to see like a team need to learn how to play a certain map over the course of an Apex tournament, basically. So that's been fun. Other than that, I've mostly been playing Ori. Other people have other things. Rob, I know you've gotten back into a different game recently too that you liked already. You've been playing that. Well, okay, wait. There's 2. I'm looking at both of these games and I'm like, well, which one is less depressing to talk about? And both of them. Neither of these are. Let me start with the newer...
Rob is on his shit right now.
Rob, talk to me about this new Frostpunk DLC.
All right.
Pitch me the expansion to Frostpunk.
So, the latest DLC for Frostpunk came out about a month or so ago, was The Last Autumn. And as you might figure, it's before the actual events of Frostpunk really begin, right? It's before everything is frozen and everyone's just trying to survive around those giant heat generators. Instead, this is about one of the crews sent out to build one of the generators.
Oh.
And I was expecting both more and less, to be honest. I was expecting it's going to be Frostpunk, but with like a different environmental skin put on it, it'll be the tree, the leaves are turning on the trees and it's going to be green. And it is that, but the big change is also that you are building a work camp designed to build one big fucking thing. You are not building a city. And so all of Frostpunk is about sort of scaffolding up your economy so that you can bank the resources needed to ride out the big storm when it finally hits. That's not the name of the game in The Last Autumn. The Last Autumn is a project management game about hitting milestones. This generator needs to be done by such and such a date because that's when the scientists tell you the shit's going to hit the fan. And if it is not, you will be pulled off the project, right? If you keep missing milestones, they will basically fire you. But the way that changes what Frostpunk is that you're not really worried so much about, heat. The big issue is just making sure that you have the personnel and production pipeline to continue building out this generator. And where that gets interesting, here's just
what are the obstacles to that? Because in Frostpunk, the obstacle is the cold requires you to produce heat, which requires you to get certain fuel, and that requires you to put labor into the world, and labor gets hurt. And when labor gets hurt, it can't work to help you. And so everyone is just working for you all the time, but there's a natural decay or erosion of what your resources are because of the frost happening.
Right. The big obstacle is that you're not building a city that's designed for permanent settlement, and so you're not going to be able to support a large workforce. You need enough workers to get the job done, and not more.
So wait, are you not building a company town? Where do the workers go home at night? What's the...
No, they live in level 1, tier 1 housing. They live in the tents.
Okay.
You remember from Frostpunk. But what you're not going to be able to do is build the entire food production and services infrastructure around the workforce. And so the workers are there to build this generator. You can dedicate some to producing food. You can build fishing docks because one of the things you have is you're still in touch with the Empire, right? You still have supply ships going home to England to get things like steel, because it's hard for you to produce steel. So, supply ships will go out and bring that in, but you only have 4 dock ports, and you can spend it on cargo ships or you can spend them on fishing docks. But if you have 10 workers devoted to fishing, that's 10 workers who are not going to be on the generator. You can order more workers. You can say I need more crews from England. Send me more dudes. But that happens on a delay because again you're tied to this shipping logistical supply chain, and so you have to anticipate what your needs are going to be. And the real nightmare is if you botch this and you have bottlenecks, you might have a bunch of fully staffed buildings, but they're not doing anything because they don't have the resources to do anything. And so what you've effectively got is, out of the 120 workers you've got in your town, you might have 60 that are idle because you fucked up so badly.
Right. And
that's 60 people you still have to feed. You can send crews out into the wilderness because there's that overworld map in Frostpunk, and they can create, you can find a stream that has good fishing, and they can build a permanent camp and start sending you regular deliveries of fish or regular deliveries of reindeer meat from the hunting camp. But again, is that a net, like, how much of a benefit is that? Because you sent 10 workers out to go do this.
Right.
So to a degree, like sustaining this town, if you go too far down the rabbit hole of I'm going to build out my economy and then scaffold it up, you're going to end up with a town that can sustain itself, but not actually produce the generator. And that is kind of because building the generator is this entire multi-step process of you have to build manufacturing and fabrication facilities for, really apt to this fucking conversation we had at the start of the show.
Yes, This is why I was saying.
So what you have at the center of your camp is a giant pit. That's where the generator is going to go. Before you can even begin to build the generator, it's not like you just throw resources at the generator. You first have to build a factory that will produce structural framing for the generator. And that's going to require a lot of workers and a lot of steel. And the steel's coming in from, again, the ships. You need to produce a lot of these things, especially because workplace safety is a major part of The Last Autumn. And there are accidents routinely if you just run it by default. What you can do is you can build more framing elements and more structural elements to make the site safer. Like, think you're adding more scaffolding, right? You can also institute safety protocols and have work sites work slower in exchange for reducing the risk of injury. Because once somebody's injured and they're in a medical tent, now that's a loss, right? And you know, hopefully that it can be turned around and they can come back. But if you're having a lot of injuries, the math on your workforce begins to, again, take a nosedive. And so at each level of generator, this problem gets harder because once you have the frame up, then you got to build, more advanced sites to produce the next stage of the generator. And making all of that work is really tough. And it really drives home how Frostpunk looked like it was a really difficult game, but was actually really forgiving.
Yeah, I remember you saying that at the time, right? Like, it was easy to build the systems that allowed you to just succeed, that worked. They just worked. Like, if you put the right gears together, so to speak, the machine ran.
Yeah, if you screwed up and you're like, I don't have enough coal, unless you were really in over your head, like, if you didn't have enough coal, you could build the highest tier coal mine and crash mine some coal, and get yourself out of that jam. You could produce it in such a quantity that you would handle the problem before it got so bad. That's not an option here. There's only going to be so much coal, only going to be so much steel coming off those ships. And so making all of this work becomes way, way harder because basically everything is at a pretty far remove and delay from what you're used to playing Frostpunk. And so it's actually a way more interesting game than I initially gave it credit for being. But on the other hand, it's not as satisfying as Frostpunk is because it's fun to build the big scaffold and see your town grow up. Here, you really are just a construction foreman in a lot of ways. And yeah, it's a permanent construction settlement, but you're not going to be developing a cool city the way you were in Frostpunk. You just need to build the generator.
Right. Does that take away from it for you a little bit in terms of the fundamental joy of a city builder?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. It's tough because Frostpunk, going back to it also made me realize how tough Frostpunk was to read in some ways. Like, they're kind of ugly cities. Their buildings aren't too visually distinct. So I think it does take away from some of the joy, but on the other hand, the longer I spent staring at Frostpunk, the more I realized it's a cool, grim little concept, but the spectacle of it wasn't too much. So I think it detracts from it a little bit, but I think it makes up for it in terms of giving you a different problem to solve using predominantly the same mechanics.
Well, I'm glad that this is the direction that they went though with the expansion. Like, I think it's really cool for them to try a different scenario in a way that's not just here's another different scenario of Survive the Ice. I'm really curious if they have they announced a sequel or what they're working on after this? No? Very curious.
Yeah, I don't know.
Cool. Well,
my assumption would be we'll get a sequel. I think this game did pretty well for them.
Yeah. Well, they also did this War of Mind, right? So I'm curious if they just do another, if they have something else on the back burner that's like another big, fresh project.
Survivalism is hot right now, baby.
It is. I'm curious to see if that.
They're also very good at porting, like really stretching. Like this War of Mine was like ported and expanded on for a long time. So I won't be surprised if they stretch out.
Frostpunk gets another 2 years.
Frostpunk, is it on consoles yet? I think it is. Yes.
I feel like it's on. I feel like I saw it on Game Pass the other day, but I have no idea.
That sounds right. October 11th it came to PS4 and Xbox One.
Gotcha.
So that Switch port will hit in a year.
There you go. Yeah, give it time. Totally. It's
totally. Really quick, Rob. I know you want to shout out another game that is also.
Oh yeah, I'm back to playing Vampire. Don't worry about it. It's great.
Still good.
It's still good.
Wait, did you beat it the first time, or did you pick up your save?
Far, but
okay, did you start a new game?
Oh, Austin. Oh,
okay.
I got far enough into the game where I didn't remember what was going on.
Okay.
So I started over, and then it started to come back to me. But I was like, okay, I'm going to play this game. It's going to be fine. And then I made some decisions that I did not like the outcome to in my restarted game. And I was like, well, that seems like bullshit.
Did you start over again?
No, I went back to my old save because I was like, I think I bridged the gap pretty well here, and I can walk that back because I don't remember fucking that up that badly last time. And so, like Vampire, all about like living with your consequences. That's what that game is all about.
No. You're a vampire. You have some sort of weird sage-like vision that you saw the alternate path, and you're jumping between timelines. You know, special vampire power.
It's beautiful. And
also, I'm not saying that I am some sort of new type or Haruspex or Sage, but I do want to remind people I woke up on Monday and I said, this is going to be a week. I can feel it in my bones. I can feel it. I can feel it through my body.
Yeah, but you can't be like on Monday as the outbreak is starting to rage out of control.
I said it before they told
I think this is going to be a yes, Vice isn't the world. Like
Vice was the world to me, Rob.
You can't be
Vice
like
was
Thursday,
the world
like,
to me.
I told you guys. I told you this was gonna be a wild week. It's like, what was your clue?
My anxiety levels. That's what my clue was. Waking up and being like, whoa, waking up 90 minutes early because of stress vibrations. That's why. Anyway, I'm glad Vampire is still good. I hope it serves you well in this dark time. Cado, what are you turning to as we lock ourselves away in self-quarantine?
Oh, Destiny has a new season, and so I'm playing it again.
Wait, is this okay? Last season, Saint something.
Saint 14. Yes.
Okay, so this is Saint 15 then.
No, God.
Saint 14, 15.
We are returning to a different set of DLC characters that kind of got pushed aside. Anna Bray and the Warmind are back. Into
That's
the whole picture.
They were big in the Warmind expansion.
Yes. They were like she was the main NPC, and that whole expansion was around the Warmind on Mars. But this time around, basically, the Cabal have pulled a Zeon and are going to drop a giant thing onto Earth, onto the last city.
Good. What are they dropping? An asteroid, a space station,
the Almighty, a space station, basically. So this is that ship that was siphoning energy off of the sun in the original Destiny 2 campaign, which we disabled
one of
the
late
weapon
game
on.
Fights.
Yeah. And you disable the weapon on, but it's sitting out there like floating.
Still up there.
We should have taken out the engines and made the sun eat it. That's what we should have done.
Or something. Well, actually, part of it.
Well, can the sun eat something? Can it eat the sun?
This is a question no one knows the answer to. You need to use your vampire powers to go to a different timeline to find out what would happen if we did.
But essentially, yeah, they've pointed it at the Earth, and now we have to ask the Warmind Rasputin to use its big guns to help
to shoot it
out of the sky in a way that doesn't also, because there's also like there's like a bit where like there's a reactor, and if you don't hit it right, it could explode in a way that takes out most of the solar system. It's got to be precision.
I feel like this loses something by not being told in Destiny lore.
Right.
Yeah, when you just lay it out like
you gotta
this.
ask the Warmind, like, can it shoot it with its big gun?
With its big guns. Actually, you're helping turn on a bunch of old like Rasputin bunkers and computers and shit that have been turned off for a while. Is what you're.
Is that like a favor?
Activate the Bartok protocol.
Are you doing a favor, or is it like, I'll shoot it out, but only if you go reboot my programs?
It's a little bit of both. Because it also kind of is, it's also like, well, I kind of need these to make double sure that I don't fuck up this shot. So you're basically starting up a bunch of bunkers that are like satellite construction sites, which is part of the new like world public event activity that they added into this season.
Mm-hmm.
It works similarly to how Escalation Protocol did, where there's like a tower out in the world that you like interact with to start it. You can just start it whenever you want, but it's really tough enemies, which is a fun change because it's been a while since anything has been scary in Destiny, since at least the launch of Shadowkeep, so since September. But it's a neat new like. You like defend a tower, and you have to keep enemies out of a certain area in order for that tower to spit out these energy balls that you then dunk into a different thing that's moving across the sky. It's a really fun little event, but apart from that, there's also like a bunch of super high level lost sectors, which this is the first time they've done anything with lost sectors.
Yeah, I haven't heard that name in a long time.
Yeah, right.
Puff of cigarette. Yeah,
they've re-released some of them as like legendary, which means they've added all the enemies are like top level, and also they've added champions to them, which were a thing that they introduced in Shadowkeep, which are enemies with very specific counters that you have to like slot mods in to deal with. So they're tough. It's cool that they're doing something with those spaces, because a lot of those environments are actually really, really cool. And apart from that, though, it feels like, you know, the neater parts of this so far have been the small like mission like stories where you're starting this adventure and you're actually seeing, you know, Zavala is out with you fighting alongside you some of the Fallen that have taken over one of the old bunkers. Cool. It's like, it's neat to see those characters kind of exist
in the world
outside of being the NPC that you just like talk to and is a screen to buy stuff off of. And they're doing that more this time than they've slowly been upticking the amount of times that you see NPCs actually existing as other people, which is fun.
Yeah, that's good.
But yeah, as far as the beginning of it goes, it's been really fun. The question is how long before repeating this event and doing the other, like the legendary stuff, feels repetitive, you know? That's always kind of the thing with this, is like, how long will I be playing before I'm like, I did it enough times and I'll just stop. Which is, this is an interesting thing, because there was a piece that went up yesterday, once you're listening to this, from Doc Buford for us, that was talking about Burford.
Burford, yeah.
Burford, okay.
Look, the kerning on many sites has caused some confusion about that. But yeah, it's Burford.
Burford, sorry. Where
that piece
basically, he makes an argument for the loot game in Destiny being not good. Basically, it being kind of what's the word I'm looking for?
A lot of negative reinforcement, I think is the thrust.
The word I was looking for. It's a negative reinforcement loop instead of a positive one. and like I don't disagree with that, but it's also a very different way from the way that I engage with Destiny in. Like I've never hunted for loot in that same way. I'm more interested in Destiny's a FPS that feels good. I'll do an exotic quest and like get that exotic the first time, but I'm not gonna hunt for rolls on like exotic armor, for example. It's just like once I have the item once, I'm good. And so what is more interesting for me is that there be new experiences. Obviously, different people want this to be their kind of forever regular game. Like I'm okay with hitting a wall,
dipping in and out.
Yeah, there's nothing else to do. That's fine. There are other games that I have to catch up with anyways. But for a while there, when I started back in Destiny 1, I understood this kind of mindset a lot more, given that it was one of the only games I got in that year that it came out. And it's just like, this needs to fill as much space as possible because I'm not getting another game for a while. So like, I definitely get what this is coming from, if currently I'm not as bothered by some of the loot changes. But it's a good piece worth reading for sure.
Cool, yeah, people should go check that out. All right, I think that does it for me. Does anyone have any other last shout-outs they want to make before we wrap this up?
Oh, what's that?
Do you want
the Peggle game?
The Peggle game.
I wanna.
Did you put any time into that?
Yeah, well, I can't. We gotta
wait.
We gotta set it up. We gotta set it up. It is called. Where the fuck did we put
just wrote
that?
about it.
The word like guard is in it or something, right?
Rogue guard or something like that.
I'm scrolling. This is bad.
Mike Fahey, where's
I got
your
it.
piece?
It's called Roundguard.
Roundguard.
Uh huh. Do you want to set up Roundguard?
Yeah. Roundguard is a if you took the mechanics of Peggle, of like dropping a ball.
Peggle is basically like pachinko, right? Yeah. It's basically just pachinko.
But yeah, like it's pachinko with like abilities, and sometimes you can aim it, right? And so like this takes that core concept and builds like on top of that sort of whereas like Peggle, I only played the first one and I played the second one. But I played like the first one a lot on like iPad, where you're just going from like one structured level to the next. And in what is this called again? I've already forgotten in my head. Roundguard. It's a a roguelite in which like you have a map. So there are sort of like discrete stages. I've only done one run.
Yeah.
I haven't done it a second time, so I don't know if those stages are randomized or how they change on the next loop. But you pick a character class who like start with like different levels of health or magic, and also have a specific ability assigned to them. Yeah. Like the one that I just went with, like the first one, because I wasn't sure who I even liked, and their ability it seems like more like a warrior class. So like they spin. You can hit a button and you can spin before you get to an enemy, and that's one of the big changes. Is that there are all sorts of different types of objects on the screen, so it's like a more complex setup. So you have enemies that are both staying in place and that are also roaming around, and by hitting them you can cause damage. They can cause damage to you, and yeah, I played like 45 minutes of it. I'm not a huge fan of the art. I think it's actually perhaps distractingly bad.
It's not great. I don't love it. It's like very.
I just don't like the style. Like for what it is, it's like
I get how you
what
get
it's
there.
Going for.
Yes.
It's fine. I just don't like it, and I find that it's rare that a game's art style like actively sort of like takes away from my enjoyment. But I actually do think that might be the case here. Where like if I could just take this game and have it look.
What if it looked like Dicey
different?
Dungeons? What if it looked like Dicey Dungeons?
Or even if it was like pixel versions of like what it is. I just don't like it. It has this hand drawn
look like
that
a flash
it
game. It looks like a I don't want to. It doesn't matter. It's a cool game. It's fine. People should go look at it. But I don't want to get hung up on this particular diss.
No. But because I do like playing it, and like basically my takeaway after like 45 minutes was like, damn, like why haven't more games ripped off Peggle? Like what happened? Like that was clearly EA doesn't want to do anything with it, which I'm actually sort of surprised. Hey, Apple Arcade, just go tell EA to make another one of those.
I unsubscribed to Apple Arcade finally. I did it.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm very close to
I was like,
it.
and there's new shit there, and I looked at it, I was like, oh, this stuff looks all right. Cancel. Done. I'm not going to play it. I know my heart. But if they put a Peggle RPG on there, you might get me. I don't know.
That's the one thing, Rob. I need to add a cancel Apple Arcade to my reminders app. I don't have that on there, and I actually paid for that 3 months longer than
we got to update. We got to update those articles.
It's true. And
time has run out for Apple Arcade, and once you lost Patrick,
you've lost the everyman. There goes Patrick. So goes Patrick. So goes the world.
It seems cool. It's out on. It'll be out on, or is out. I think. I don't know.
Well, speaking of PopCap and EA stuff, PopCap did Peggle, right? Or am I wrong about that?
Yes.
No, you're right.
You see Plants vs Zombies 3 soft launched last week?
Sure. Why not?
Yeah, it did. It launched in, I want to say...
That just happened?
that just happened. They just tweeted it out. I forget where they soft launched it, but they soft launched it in certain territories, basically. So yeah, that's happening, which is funny. Yeah. It's called Roundguard. Roundguard. That's all.
I don't know that I'm going to spend more time with this one. I just know that I like this style of game, and I wish there was a different, like another one.
Here's what I want to hear.
Yeah.
Somebody write in and explain to us, what is this art style? Like, what's the term for it? Because like chibi isn't the right term. I'm actually really curious what the language is.
Yeah, sure.
To like figure this out, because I'd like. Clearly, it's the product of like good, talented artists, but it is a style and it is a look. And I am curious, like, what do you call this aesthetic? Because there's a lot of things it reminds me of, but all the language I have is off target and misleading.
It looks like an animated cartoon. Like, if there are a lot of shows that my daughter flicks through on Netflix that I see like pulled from this, or I see a lot of like.
This is like, what if chibis were Bitmojis?
Oh, that sucks. That sucks, the thing you said.
Take it back. Cut it out from the podcast, Cado. That's mean.
Don't put that world in the world. Don't put that energy out there. I don't like it. Damn. It does have big Bitmoji energy. I hate it. I hate that you made me think about this. Oh, God. Great. You know what else should come out here? Not just more Peggle RPGs. Fucking, they should port or localize World Flipper. That Cygames.
Yes. Give it. Come on.
Pinball.
Let's
gotcha
go.
RPG.
Let's go.
Please. What? You didn't look at World Flipper? Y'all didn't see World Flipper?
You don't gotta tell me about World Flip.
It's the gotcha.
I don't actively set an alarm for it, but there is just like every, I would say, I don't know, 2 months, like it'll just like come into my head and be like, oh right, that game. Did that get localized? Did someone do some sort of patch where I can hack my iPhone and start playing it?
I hear it's actually not that good, but that's from gotcha people, not from pinball RPG people.
I am. Give me a mobile pinball game that has return elements. That's what I want.
Return elements. Yeah.
Return elements.
God, that's what it would say on the pitch deck for this game if someone presented it.
We're investing in a lot of return elements for our game, World Flipper. Look at this game.
It looks good. It looks so good. I love the art style so much. It's by my new phase.
It's got numbers. It's got explosions. Yeah. It's got great 2D Come on.
Let Cygames know once they're done cashing
in this time of coronavirus.
Please, I need to
Now
play.
is the time for World Flipper.
We gotta flip this world on its head, bring people together, just not literally, because that's actually really dangerous right now. Please stay in your homes. Oh God.
Cygames.
Yeah, Cygames, the Granblue people. This is the Granblue people.
Yeah.
They're going to take all that Granblue money they're getting right now. Also, I have to say, I picked the best possible time to play Granblue Fantasy. It is the 6th anniversary. This is just every day, I'm getting between 10 and 30 draws of pools of new characters, new weapons, new summons. It's just boom, boom, boom. They're giving us scratch tickets. All of this shit is so like manipulative.
It's like a bodega and a fighting game.
It's gonna fucking suck when those things go away.
Right, well, the whole reason they do this is so that when April rolls around, like, also just put $30 in this game. You can feel like that again for a split second. And I'm not going to do that. And I even feel a little bit bad. I even feel a little bit bad promoting gacha games because I know they prey on people with gambling addiction and who have different personalities than me.
But Austin's different.
Well, really what it comes down to for me specifically it is very bright, very funny, often thoughtful, sometimes even queer fantasy anime bullshit that is scratching the itch for me right now. A lot of the characters, every character unlocks with like a little short story, basically a little short like visual novel. All that stuff is great. It's been really fun to build character teams out and put together strong RPG squads. I hope that Cygames takes this money and uses it to bring World Flipper and also to finish making their Platinum Games RPG, action RPG that's set in the same world, which also has the most fucking Kingdom Hearts name I've ever heard from a non-Kingdom Hearts thing. It's called Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, which is absolutely the one where Sora is a data Sora, I'm pretty sure. But when I looked at, or maybe they're not, maybe they're not developing that anymore. Maybe somebody else, Cygames just developing that in-house now, I guess. But man, I want that game, and it looked good. And I want them to do well because I like this universe that they've given me. So, all right, no more talking about mobile games and Grand Blue Fantasies and pinball games and Peggle games. Now it is time to rest. I hope everyone has a good week. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at not good week, good weekend. We'll be back next week post debate, which in the time of our recording has been delayed, or not delayed, but moved to DC.
Yeah,
they're not doing it in Arizona anymore, which is the right call, I would say. As always,
did they end up changing those rules?
I don't know. Patrick or Rob, did you see if the rules ended up being the kind of sit down town hall thing that
I think it's just now it's just gonna be like a sit down with a interviewer. It kind of just seems like at this point.
Yeah, that sounds right. Let's see how that goes. As always,
one of the folks had to one of the debate moderators had to drop out because they'd had didn't test positive, but had exposure.
Okay, right. That makes sense. I hope that the debate goes well. Everyone, I hope you keep your heads up during all this. I know I already kind of said the shit up top, but in general, like I've been thinking and reading some Gramsci again. Shout outs to Mayor Pete's dad for being the preeminent Gramsci scholar in the world. Gramsci, the Marxist theorist of cultural hegemony. And this thing that Gramsci wrote about is kind of I've been revisiting my notes on that stuff from grad school on this notion of war of positions and war of maneuvers. Before Gramsci, a lot of Marxists were really focused only on, and this is like debatable to some degree, but really focused only on the kind of material conditions and not on ideology or rhetoric or discourse. But one of the big things that Gramsci kind of identified was the importance of winning these ideological battles that would open up the possibility for the sort of material action necessary to change the circumstances of the world. And he kind of differentiated those two things as war of maneuver and war of position. War of maneuver is when you're maneuvering to make big material real change. You're knocking down the gates. You're taking over the factories. You're doing the things that you need to do to literally have a revolution that changes the world in a big real way. But war of position, the kind of small discursive wins, what we talk about is shifting the Overton window. We talk about when we talk about earning compromises or earning concessions from the center of the party. What we talk about when we say that like 10 years ago, the sorts of conversations we have right now on a gaming podcast could not be imagined. Gramsci did a lot of work explaining that he was like a big gamer. While he was locked in fascist prison in Italy, he just loved playing his Switch. But no, which is so important is this dude who was literally in Mussolini's fascist prisons is saying we have to think more than just you can't just open the prison gate. You have to convince the guards that the prison doesn't need to exist to begin with, right? That you start with wars of position, and then eventually the war of position ain't it. You gotta have that war of maneuver too. And so yeah, as we go into these debates, start thinking about that stuff in those terms. Think about the wins we can get now, the ways in which we can continue to move the conversation towards justice, towards equality, and be willing to shift into that mode, because otherwise I think the pain of the situation can really overwhelm. So that is my only good words to you on this Friday before the debate. I hope everyone has a good weekend. Twitter.com/Waypoint, Twitter.com/Austin_Walker. Patrick, where can people find you?
At Patrick Klubbock.
Rob Zachney.
At Rob Zachney on Twitter.com.
And Cado.
At A_Cado_appears.
As always, thank you to Bowen for letting us use the song Miss You off the EP Pale Machine. Find out more about that. You can go to waypoint.zone/BOEN. I feel like I can't say go home anymore. I mean, you actually, maybe now more than ever.
Yeah.
Fuck
No,
capitalism.
Yeah.
Go home. I was going to say stay home, but go home. If you can, please.
As someone who works from home, you still got to go.
You still got to go home. You still got to go home. You know what? You're right. Don't work in your bed. Don't work in your relaxation spaces. Try to find a space in your house that you can set up as your workspace and work there, because otherwise it'll infect the rest of your life. Have a good weekend, everybody. Talk to you soon. Peace. All right. That's a podcast.
Awesome.
That's a podcast.
That's a podcast.
Man, I could crush a delivery pizza right now.
You can get a delivery pizza.
But can I, though?
Yes. Support those businesses now while it's still remarkable.
Until
safe.
literally you can't. Like
Yes, until literally you can't. And don't start going through your fucking stockpile until you need to go through that stockpile.
Yeah, that's what
That's true.
Katie and I are starting to do a lot of ordering out to try and go picking it up ourselves. And, I mean, I guess you just don't want to report you still want to support the gig workers, but also should I just go? I don't, it's complicated.
Yeah.
I'm trying to spread my money around. I don't know.
Look, see, this is what you got to get on that dumpling app, because then you have your personal shopper that you actually know, and like you're tipping well, and like so one person, she and I are going to have a
I'm not worried about the
conversation.
groceries. I'm good on food. Food is set. I'm talking about like day to day, like ordering out instead of making food, trying to like just supporting, local businesses, and like I'll make the food later.
Right. I found, by the way, just to be 100% clear, I found the specific pony thing with Hillary Clinton, so that I'm not under any libel case. There's a long thing in which first she analogizes, or she says that Jake Sullivan, her top policy advisor, this is from her book, says that Bernie reminded her of a scene, or debating Bernie reminded her, Jake Sullivan, of a scene in There's something about Mary, in which a hitchhiker says he's coming with a brilliant plan. Instead of the famous 8-minute abs exercise routine, he's going to market 7-minute abs. It's the same, just quicker. Then the driver, played by Ben Stiller, says, well, why not 6-minute abs? That's what it's like in a policy debate with Bernie. We propose a bold infrastructure investment plan or an ambitious new apprenticeship program for young people. And then Bernie would announce basically the same thing, but bigger. On issue after issue, it was like he kept purporting to 4-minute abs or even no-minute abs, magic abs. Someone sent me a Facebook post that summed up the dynamic in which we were caught. Bernie, I think America should get a pony. Hillary, how will you pay for the pony? Where will the pony come from? How will you get Congress to agree to the pony? Bernie, Hillary thinks America doesn't deserve a pony. Bernie supporters, Hillary hates ponies. Hillary, actually, I love ponies. Bernie supporters, she changed her position on ponies. Hashtag which Hillary. Hashtag which Hillary. Headline, Hillary refuses to give every American a pony. Debate moderator, Hillary, how do you feel when people say you lie about ponies? That is...
I can see where that would be infuriating, but that's not actually the dynamic. Like, if you perceived it that way, there's your problem.
Can you imagine if a debate moderator had said, Hillary, how do you feel when people say you lie about X? Just no. That was never the frame. I shouldn't say never, I haven't gone back and reviewed all of the transcripts, but my memory of those debates was never, Hillary, why are you lying? Ever. It might have been, Hillary, how do you feel when people say mean things? Who are mean people say mean things. Anyway, are we back, Cado? Are you ready? And I still also have a second one, so yeah. All right. Let's you need to clap again, right?
Yes.
Let's just you and me do it. And you top of the minute?
Sounds good.
Hang on, we should all do it together.
All right, well, it's not too
because the latency has been a moving target.
You're
that
right.
affects all of us differently, so we might as
sure.
well just do it across the call.
All right, sounds good. Are we all there?
No.
Yep.
No, hold on.
Right, 12.
Go ahead.
12.
12. The Cado delay.
Did y'all just see that?
The Cado delay is unbelievable.
Is it really delayed? I clapped before I heard any of y'all clap.
You were like 3 seconds off.
At least.
Weird. What is up with my
I
internet?
could fit a sentence in between when you speak and when we see you speak.
What the fuck? Wait, just the video?
It might be getting worse.
Maybe this camera just doesn't like. Maybe Discord just doesn't like this camera.
Turn your camera off and then back on. No, don't touch it. You know what? It's fine. Let's just do a podcast.
Yeah, let's just go.
Let's just get through a podcast.
We'll do it live. Oh, that's right. That's a Riley quote. Well, it's not.
Fine.
That's just a TV quote.
Yeah. That's a pre-Riley. I mean, that show is a piece of shit show, but whatever. World Wide Web's birthday. Happy birthday, Internet.
Thanks.
You want to do 10 seconds?
Yeah.
Cado.
I clapped.
Did you get it?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Your video was very delayed on my side. I was like, wait, did you forget that you also have to do this now?
His video is very choppy on my end, too.
Weird.
Yeah, you're like at 12 frames a second. Like,
that's not good.
The picture is great.
Interesting.
Just razor sharp.
Fun.
I have to bring you up. There we go. Okay.
Does everything sound okay, at least?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just
Rob's a little quiet for me, but I'm
Rob, I have you boosted
that.
to 200%.
Me
and
too.
I can sort of hear you.
I got you. Don't even worry about it.
Okay.
Rob, this is not the week to say don't worry about it. This is the week to say worry about it.
Oh wow, yeah. Look at that video looks bad on my end too.
Mm-hmm.
Good, great.
Well, you're like in an 80s music video. Like if you could just put on some filter,
I should
like
be
a hand drum.
significantly louder now.
There you go. That's good. I can hear you
Yeah,
now.
take on me, like get a little.
Yeah.
It's 100%.
Perfect.
Great. Love it.
All right.